Ever since its introduction to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Crystal Beasts have been a fan-favorite archetype, joining the likes of Heroes, Cyber Dragons, and even Frog. But unlike those archetypes, Crystal Beasts has never had an opportunity to shine within the competitive metagame, which is why they're the topic of today's video, discussing what's held them back for so long and whether or not their latest support could make them a meta-viable deck. The Crystal Beast monsters are an archetype of monsters whose main gimmick is that whenever they're destroyed by battle, card effect, or other means, instead of sending them to the graveyard, you place them face up in your spell and trap card zone as a continuous spell card. Then, as continuous spells, these Crystal Beast monsters can provide you with a number of benefits, whether that's a strong effect like with Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon, free cards that you can summon out with Crystal Beast Ruby Carbuncle, or even just increasing the impact of your archetypal spells and traps. All of this is done with the express purpose of summoning out an ultimate crystal monster, an archetype of Rainbow Dragon variants that usually need the Crystal Beast monsters to be used in order to fulfill their summoning conditions. Initially, Rainbow Dragon was the only ultimate crystal monster in the game, but this eventually expanded to include Rainbow Dark Dragon, Rainbow Over Dragon, and Ultimate Crystal Rainbow Dragon Overdrive. Speaking of Rainbow Dark Dragon, Crystal Beasts also have a sister archetype, the Advanced Crystal Beasts. These cards are still technically Crystal Beast monsters, even become continuous spells in the same way, but the Advanced Crystal Beast revolves specifically around Advanced Dark, a field spell which makes all your Crystal Beast monsters dark so you can actually summon out Rainbow Dark Dragon. So, what's the idea behind the Crystal Beasts? In the past, the general idea behind the whole archetype is that you wanted to fill up as many of your spell and trap card zones as possible with as many different Crystal Beast names so that you can reap the most benefits. Because the more Crystal Beast monsters you had in your spell and trap card zone, the more you could benefit from your overpowered spell and trap cards. Rare Value is an archetypal Pot of Greed, Crystal Abundance is Soul Charge, and Crystal Raigeki and Crystal Conclave serve as great ways to interrupt your opponent. And eventually, if you got enough Crystal Beast monsters in your spell and trap card zone, you can unlock every benefit of Rainbow Ruins, the main Crystal Beast field spell. A battle trick that's also a spell and trap negate that also draws you free cards that also lets you summon out your Crystal Beast monsters from your spell and trap card zone. Then, after swarming the field and filling the graveyard with enough of your Crystal Beasts, you can then special summon out Rainbow Dragon, a big beater with an impressive 4,000 attack that's capable of wiping the entire field with a single effect. However, for a long while, this game plan just didn't do enough to justify playing Crystal Beasts. For starters, Rainbow Dragon is a terrible payoff for the deck, because while it has two great effects, one to wipe the field and the other one to make it gain a ton of attack, you can't activate those effects on the turn that it's special summoned. So after you've spent all the effort putting 7 Crystal Beast monsters with different names on your field or graveyard, your best payoff is a 4,000 attack beat stick that might as well be a vanilla, since you have to wait an entire turn to be able to use its effects. But the thing is, you were never really summoning Rainbow Dragon anyways, because in order to bring it out, you need 7 Crystal Beast cards with different names either on the field or in the graveyard. But out of the original 7 Crystal Beast monsters ever released, 5 of them had terrible effects as monsters that didn't help the deck further its game plan at all, with only Sapphire Pegasus and Ruby Carbuncle having relevant effects. What's worse is that as continuous spells, the original 7 Crystal Beasts actually do nothing on their own, and just fill up your spell and trap card zones with virtually no effect, in a similar way to the original Toon World. So even with the absolutely absurd number of busted spell and trap cards the archetype has available to it, it was doomed to be unplayable because most of the actual Crystal Beast monsters were basically just vanillas, both as monsters and as continuous spell cards, which meant you didn't even want to play a big density of Crystal Beast monsters. And this also weakened your Crystal Beast spell and trap cards, since a lot of them require a certain number of Crystal Beasts to be in your spell and trap card zone to be useful. It meant that summoning out Rainbow Dragon would be almost impossible. As a result of this failed playstyle, however, there have been a number of attempts to reinvent Crystal Beasts throughout the years. Rainbow Dark Dragon, for example, attempted to give Crystal Beasts a new payoff with an immediately usable effect, but it was really awkward to use since none of the actual Crystal Beast monsters are dark monsters, so you had to play Advanced Dark if you wanted to summon it. However, with the recently released Structure deck, as well as the deck's most recent support, Crystal Beasts have gone from almost unplayable to a solid rogue option that's capable of taking games against Flunderies, Sprite, and even the Tier 0 tier limits. So let's look at notable cards in the deck and how this strategy has evolved from what it once was to what it is today, and discuss why certain Crystal Beast cards have succeeded in making the deck great, and why others have failed, and how even some of the worst Crystal Beast cards have managed to see use. Let's start off with Rainbow Dragon, Crystal Beast's original boss monster. Rainbow Dragon isn't technically a Crystal Beast card, but is an ultimate crystal monster with its own built-in summoning condition, letting you bring it out to the field if there are 7 Crystal Beast monsters with different names on the field or in the graveyard, and it can't be summoned in other ways. This is an incredibly demanding summoning condition, especially in a deck like Crystal Beasts, where a lot of the deck's monsters don't have ways of bringing themselves or others to the field, and as a result it's incredibly difficult to swarm the field and graveyard with enough Crystal Beasts in order to bring out Rainbow Dragon. But if you actually manage to summon Rainbow Dragon, you get a 4,000 attack beat stick with 2 really strong effects. Its first effect lets you send Crystal Beast monsters you control to the graveyard at quick effect speed to increase the attack of Rainbow Dragon by 1,000 for every Crystal Beast monster you send, which would make Rainbow Dragon an excellent tool for OTKing, And that's not all, because Rainbow Dragon's second effect is even better, allowing you to banish every Crystal Beast monster from your graveyard to shuffle back the entire field into the deck. Now, this includes your own field as well as Rainbow Dragon itself, but this form of non-destruction, non-targeted board wipe is excellent, and a big reason why a card like Zeus sees competitive play. However, while these effects are directly strong, Rainbow Dragon also comes with a heavy restriction which prevents any of its effects from being used on the turn that it's special summoned. This restriction basically removes all Rainbow Dragon's potential utility, and turns it from a hard to bring out but potentially strong payoff into just a high attack beatstick, which meant that it was never worth the effort to bring out. And even when Rainbow Neos was seeing competitive play, a fusion monster that requires an ultimate crystal monster as a material, Rainbow Dark Dragon was often the choice of ultimate crystal monster simply because its summoning condition, despite being difficult to fulfill, was at least a bit more feasible than Rainbow Dragon. So because Rainbow Dragon is hard to summon out and has a terrible restriction which kills its playability, you would expect a more modern Crystal Beast deck to have moved away from it and not played at all. However, the modern Crystal Beast support has changed Rainbow Dragon's role, because now, instead of being a bad payoff for an archetype that would rarely summon it, it's now a really integral engine piece that Crystal Beasts now want to play, even if there's no chance of it being summoned. And that's because of two specific cards, Awakening of the Crystal Ultimates and Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon. Awakening of the Crystal Ultimates needs you to reveal an ultimate crystal monster in your hand if you want to get access to either of its effects. This sounds like a lot to ask because it requires you to play Rainbow Dragon and have it in hand in order to use it, but it's worth the hoops to jump through because both of its effects are absolutely absurd. If you choose to use the first effect, you can take a Rainbow Bridge card and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. Meanwhile, if you activate its second effect, you get to special summon out any Crystal Beast monster from your hand, deck, graveyard, or spell and trap card zone. And if you happen to control Ultimate Crystal Monster, you actually get to use both. This is unlikely to happen, as even the latest Ultimate Crystal monsters are hard to summon, but it is a neat little bonus to keep in mind. Its second effect is a great way of swarming the field with your Crystal Beasts, since it's pretty much just an emergency teleport for the archetype, and is particularly strong since it lets you use the effect of the Crystal Beast monsters you summon, allowing you to place a free Crystal Beast to your spell and trap card zone with Pegasus, or if your zone's already full, you can use the summon effect of Ruby Carbuncle to swarm the field with a ton of bodies. And because its effect is so good at helping you swarm the field, it gives Crystal Beasts much easier access to the extra deck, and is a big part of the reason as to why the deck has a ton of rank 4s and link plays available to them. And its first effect is also astonishing too, because of the sheer variety of options it gives you since you have 3 incredibly strong targets for it. Rainbow Bridge to get access to your other crystal spells and traps, Rainbow Bridge of the Heart for the same reason and for the free normal summon, or you can choose to send Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to the graveyard. But in order to even activate Awakening, you do still need a way to get Rainbow Dragon to hand so you can reveal it. And the best way of doing that is with another piece of the deck's modern support, Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon. This version of Rainbow Dragon is not an ultimate crystal monster, so you can't reveal it off of Awakening, but to make up for that, it has a really strong trio of effects. The first is the same as any other Crystal Beast monster, where if it would be destroyed, you can place it in your spell and trap card zone. And the second lets you summon it out from your hand whenever an attack is declared involving a Crystal Beast monster. But it's the third effect that really revolutionized Crystal Beasts, because unlike the other Crystal Beast monsters, Rainbow Dragon has an effect while it's a continuous spell, which allows you to banish it from your field to special summon any Crystal Beast monster from your deck with its effect negated, and then you must add an ultimate crystal monster from your deck to your hand. This effect is really important because, like Awakening, it's another way of swarming the field with level 4 bodies that you can use to go into rank 4s. But because the search of ultimate crystal monsters is mandatory, you need to have a Rainbow Dragon in your deck to actually use it, so it forces you to play Rainbow Dragon anyways. But because of Awakening, having Rainbow Dragon in hand is now actually just a benefit, since the regular Rainbow Dragon can be used to activate one of your strongest cards. So even though Rainbow Dragon is a terrible payoff the deck is never going to summon, modern support has managed to adapt the card's role in the deck to the point where it's now a really important card that you always want to have either in your hand or in the deck. So while in the past you could definitely call Rainbow Dragon a complete failure, it's actually become one of the most necessary pieces to the engine of the archetype. As well as the original Rainbow Dragon though, the way the original 7 Crystal Beast monsters have seen play has also changed since the deck's inception. Now unfortunately, a lot of the original Crystal Beast monsters are still pretty bad, because most of the effects do nothing to aid your game plan and are situational at best. However, even despite this, 4 out of the original 7 Crystal Beast monsters have actually seen recent competitive play, with one of them even being used in tier limits. The most important of the original Crystal Beast monsters in the deck itself, however, is Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus. Pegasus has the same effect to become a continuous spell like the other Crystal Beast monsters, but its unique effect is actually really good, because when it's summoned, you get to place any Crystal Beast monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard to your spell and trap card zone as a continuous spell. This effect has always been solid, but it's gotten even better in recent years, because in the past, you had few good targets to place with Pegasus. Your best hope would be to place a copy of Ruby Carbuncle so you can bring it out and use its Soul Charge effect, or to just place another copy of Sapphire Pegasus since you didn't really want to play the other Crystal Beast monsters. This didn't do too much for you, but at least let you fill up your spell and trap card zone so you could use your crystal spells and traps. But with the release of Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon, Sapphire Pegasus' strength has increased exponentially, because when the Crystal Beast version of Rainbow Dragon is a continuous spell, you get to use this effect to summon out any Crystal Beast monster from your deck and search Rainbow Dragon. This means that Sapphire Pegasus is now a 1-card rank 4, since you can banish Rainbow Dragon after putting into your spell and trap card zone with Pegasus, and then summon out a free level 4 body. This is amazing in the current format for giving the deck access to cards like Abyss Dweller and Baguska. The other of the original 7 Crystal Beasts that have seen play are Ruby Carbuncle, Cobalt Eagle, and Emerald Tortoise. Ruby Carbuncle has always been a really great part of the deck, because whenever it's special summoned, you get to special summon as many Crystal Beast cards as possible from your spell and trap card zones, which is why it's always been one of the best Crystal Beast monsters, since it's a great way of swarming the field if you manage to set up your spells and trap card zones with enough monsters. Ruby Carbuncle's role hasn't changed too much, but because there's so many different ways of placing Crystal Beasts to your spells and trap card zones, and a ton of different ways to special summon Crystal Beast monsters, it's gotten a lot stronger by proxy. Cobalt Eagle has always been seen some amount of competitive play in Crystal Beast decks, because while its effect isn't the best, it's a good alternative target to summon with Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon or Awakening, because it's a level 4 monster that's Wind attribute, so you can even summon it under a barrier statue. But the strangest of the 4 Crystal Beast monsters that I've seen play is Crystal Beast Emerald Tortoise, because Emerald Tortoise's unique effect is actually terrible because all it does is change a monster that attacked this turn to defense position. This terrible effect is why it sees 0 play in Crystal Beast decks. But even despite that, Emerald Tortoise was, and still is, sometimes used by the best deck of the format, Tearlaments. And that's because of another new piece of support that's become integral to Crystal Beast as a deck, and has even allowed it to see play as an engine. Rainbow Bridge of Salvation is one of the most powerful spell and trap cards Crystal Beast have access to, even amongst the astonishingly strong spell and trap card lineup it already has. Its on-field effect isn't relevant because it requires 2 level 10 monsters on field of different types in order to be used. It's actually its graveyard effect, which is why it's so strong, because once per duel while it's in the graveyard, you can banish Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to add a Crystal Beast monster and any field spell in the game from your deck to your hand. The reason why a deck like Tearlaments wanted to use this effect is because it gave them even more ways to access Primeval Planet Perlorino, their incredible field spell that gives them access to a free search, pop, and attack boost. And because they easily mill Salvation at some point during their turn with the effect of Tearlaments or Ishizu monsters, it meant that Salvation became a great way of accessing their field spell. There was just one problem though, because in order to search for a field spell, Salvation must be able to search a Crystal Beast monster as well. And the Crystal Beast monster of choice for Tearlaments was Crystal Beast Emerald Tortoise. Not because of its terrible effect, but because it's an Aqua-type monster, which meant that instead of just being a dead card in hand or in the graveyard, you can instead use it as a free fusion material for something like Tearlament Kid Kalos or Tearlament's Kaleidoheart, which made both searches of Salvation actually matter. In Crystal Beast itself, however, Salvation is even stronger, and has completely changed the way Crystal Beast play the game. Because not only is it a great consistency tool for the deck, which allows you easier access to Sapphire Pegasus, it also lets you search for the strongest generic field spells in the game. This means that instead of searching cards like Rainbow Ruins or Advanced Dark, you can instead search for cards like Necro Valley to shut down any kind of graveyard interaction to completely stop a Tearlament deck. Or if you're more worried about Floowandereeze, could instead search Zombie World to stop them from being able to tribute summon. And even against Kashtira, you have Ikoldi Zone available to stop their Kashtira monsters before they have a chance to use their effects. And because it's so easy for Crystal Beast to be able to send Salvation to the graveyard, either with the effect of Awakening or using something like Foolish Burial Goods, it's allowed for the deck to lean into a more control-based playstyle where they can rely on a field spell backed up by a strong rank 4 to floodgate your opponent out of the game, rather than just being Rainbow Dragon Turbo. And being a more control-based strategy is actually beneficial for the deck, as that means Crystal Beasts get to take advantage of their incredibly powerful spell and trap card lineup. Of course, cards like Rainbow Bridge, Awakening, and Crystal Bonds do wonder for the deck's consistency and give the deck ways to search out its best cards. But even its trap card interruptions are incredibly strong. Crystal Conclave, for example, lets you bounce a Crystal Beast card you control and any card your opponent controls to the hand, letting it serve as an archetype compulse that's capable of dealing with your opponent's combo pieces and boss monsters. Another great trap card interruption the deck has available to it now is Crystal Miracle, an archetypal auto-matic that protects your floodgates, field spells, and rank 4s from any kind of board breakers, and keeps you in control of the game while also letting you use its graveyard effect to recur even more advantage by placing a Crystal Beast card to your spell and trap card zone, making it another good target for Foolish Burial Goods. This control-based playstyle is something that Crystal Beast decks in the past would lean into, occasionally being affectionately referred to as Conclave Control. This control-based playstyle has evolved since then, however, due to the number of options that have suddenly become available to the deck. It's honestly impressive how drastically Crystal Beasts have managed to improve since the introduction, as they went from a deck with laughably bad monsters that had little to no use, to even being able to take on Tier 0 Tearlaments. But in order to get to that point, the deck needed a lot of support, as well as a lot of creative minds behind it to push it to its limits. And instead of being limited by the scope of summoning Rainbow Dragon, or trying to fulfill the condition of Rainbow Ruins, these deck builders managed to make a really interesting or strong control deck that has even managed to see recent YCS tops. So it's not really fair to call Crystal Beast a failed deck. There are definitely a few cards in the Crystal Beast that you can point to and call a failure, such as the Advanced Crystal Beasts being terrible cards, the Pendulum monsters the deck has, or even how bad some of the original Crystal Beasts were. But the cards have a lot going for them as well, both as a deck and even as an engine in certain strategies that are desperate for their field spell. And their newly found ability to easily access rank 4s has made them a boon in the current format, since you can access some of the best monsters in the game to counter the current threats or the meta, especially with how consistent the deck is. So now the deck's latently powerful spells and traps can be used to their full potential. And with the up-and-coming release of Golden Rule, an insanely strong spell card that is another E-teller for the deck that also lets you place 2 Crystal Beast monsters in your spell trap card zone, the deck is going to get even stronger. And as a result, it's likely that Crystal Beasts aren't going to fizzle out anytime soon, and in fact have proven themselves to be an adaptable, strong, and interesting rogue strategy that will likely still see play even after the two elements leave the meta, unlike the Advanced Crystal Beast and Advanced Dark, which still have a long way to go before they can be considered viable. Alright, and that's the video. If you know of any other failed cards and mechanics that would make a great video for the series, please let us know down in the comments. We really need some more ideas.